So before we get solving, there are actually a few things you should know first. The first thing being the different types of pieces. So every Rubik's Cube, every 3x3 Rubik's Cube, I should say, has three different types of pieces: a center, an edge, and a corner. Centers never move. Corners have two colors, edges have two colors, and corners have three colors. There are also algorithms, and that word might seem a little bit scary, but really it's not. It's just a series of moves that you memorize. And for beginner's method, there's only three you need to memorize. Technically four, but really it's three. This video will go through in detail how to solve a Rubik's Cube, and you should be able to solve one yourself after watching it, after just a little bit of practice. Also, you should know that each Rubik's Cube has 6 sides, and these should be thought of kind of like independent sections, because when you're doing algorithms, it's easy to think of like how they're separate and not just the whole cube at once. Like, it's easy to think about how the top in algorithmic form would be written as U or U prime or something like that, and then R and L and D and F and stuff like that. Also, just a fun little fact, the Rubik's Cube has over 43 quintillion scrambles that are possible. So yeah, that's about it. Have fun watching the video, and be sure to practice, and yeah, you should be able to solve Rubik's Cube within, I don't know, a few days after watching this video, as long as you practice, and yeah. Okay, so the very first step, I guess technically, is to actually scramble the cube, which most of you probably already have this step done. Then once it's scrambled up, your first step is always to look for the yellow centerpiece. And this step I like to call the daisy, because you're pretty much just putting the white edge pieces around the yellow center in order to form kind of like a daisy-like pattern. And there are a few cases you can get with the corners, or the edges, as you see. There was one on the bottom there that I just solved, and another one on the bottom there. Most of the time this should be pretty easy. Sometimes it'll be oriented like that, and you can just kind of rotate the pieces around. It's mostly intuitive. And then after this step, what you're going to do is you're going to line up each edge up with its centerpiece, and then you're going to turn the face, or the side that's facing towards you, twice. You're going to go through one by one, do this to every single one of them. And then, so the daisy and this step are both kind of the same step. And then once you do that, you should have the white cross, which is the first step, along with the centers. And now, I do kind of go a little fast here, but pretty much there's 3 cases you can get for the next step, which is solving all of the corners with the white cross to solve the first layer. So there's 3 cases you can get. There's one where a white corner piece is on the bottom, and white is facing either to the right or the left. That's the case you want. That's the easy one. You can solve it really quick. If white is to the right, you turn it to the right first, then the layer down, the spot that it needs to go in, then turn it back, and then turn it up. If it's turning to the left, you do the same, but to the left. You turn it to the left, the layer down, and etc. There also can be another case where it's on the top, like you just saw there, and in that case, you have to bring it down to the bottom layer, and you can't turn it like that, for example, because then it's facing the bottom. You want to bring it to the bottom, but not have it face the bottom. So bring it down like how I just did, or if your case is different, then do how your case is, and solve this one like how you regularly would solve it. And the last case is if it's actually facing the bottom. If it's facing the bottom, then you just put it in where it's supposed to be, even though it won't be oriented correctly. And then you have to take it back out, but in a different way, so that it's oriented differently when it's on the bottom. Now it's in an easy case, and we can solve it with just 3 moves. Or I guess 4. Now this is where it starts to get pretty tricky, but I guarantee that if you stick through it, you will be able to do it after enough practice, I promise. So now we're focused back on the yellow center, and we're looking for edge pieces around the yellow center, or I guess the top. We're looking for edge pieces that don't have any yellow on them. So here's one, for example. And then in order to solve this case, you have it lined up with its center. And then what you need to do first is turn it away from the slot that it needs to go in. Turn the slot up, back, down, away, and then move the face up so that you can slide the slot back in, and then move it back down. And then we're looking for another piece, and here we found one. And this is actually the same case. It needs to go into this slot right here. So I'm going to explain it one more time. You move it away from the slot it needs to go in, slot up, you move it back, and then you move the slot down, move it away in the opposite direction, move the face up so that you can pair the slot. Or here's the algorithm if you care enough. And then this is also the same case again. So I'm just going to really quickly explain that when you're reading algorithms, any normal letter is just that side clockwise. And then if it has a prime symbol, it means that it's counterclockwise. And then there's that pair. And here's the last one. We're almost done. Line it up. And this one's actually different. So what we're going to do is pretty much the exact same. It's just mirrored. It's the exact same set of moves, but it's just for the opposite side. So here's the algorithm if you care. Okay, so now I'm going to show you the case where all of them on the top are yellow, and you might be super confused, and you're like, what do I do? Well, then you look for an edge that isn't solved, and then you can get one of two cases. It's either going to be flipped, or it's going to be a completely different edge. Either way, what you're going to do is the exact same thing. You're just going to plug a yellow piece into that slot in order to move that piece out of the slot. So in this case, it's the right variant, so we just do the same set of moves we do as if we were plugging in a regular piece. And then now the yellow piece is in, and we moved out the orange piece that we just moved. And now we can move it back in, and then we can orientate it correctly so that it's solved this time. If it was the same case for a different piece that wasn't supposed to go in that slot, you just do the same thing, and then you move it to whichever slot it needs to go into. So congratulations, now you're pretty much halfway done with solving the cube, and we're moving on to step 3, OLL. And OLL kind of has two different parts, because it's the cross, the yellow cross, and then the edges. Now sometimes you can have the cross already solved like this. If you do, then you're already done with this step and you don't need to worry about it. If you're not done, which most likely will be the case, I'll show you the 3 different cases you can get. I'll put them on the screen. These are the 3 different cases you can get for the yellow cross. And the cool thing is you actually only need to know 2 algorithms to be able to solve this part. So here's the first case I have. It's kind of like an L shape. And no matter where it is on the cube, you want to have it oriented so that it's facing like this, like the bottom right, I guess. And then you're just going to follow along with this simple algorithm. So you're going to bring these first 2 layers down, and then R, U, R prime, U prime, and then bring them back up. And that's it. Now the cross is solved. Now here's the second case you can get where it's just a line. And remember, we're not worried about the corners for this step, so you're just focusing on the edges. It's just a line. So it's kind of the same as before, except instead of moving both of the layers down, you just move the first one. And it doesn't matter how it's oriented, it just has to be facing horizontally. It can't be vertical or else it won't work. So here's the algorithm for that. F, R, U, R prime, U prime, F prime. And then that solves the cross. And here's the last case where it's just a dot and there's no other edges. And with this case, it's actually pretty cool because you don't even need to learn a new algorithm, it's just both of them combined, starting with the first one. So just like before, we bring F, R, U, R prime, U prime, F. Now we have the other case, and we can just solve it simply by doing the other algorithm that we learned. It's the same thing, but you just bring both the layers down, do the algorithm, and now you know how to solve the cross. And now the next step, which is solving all of the edges of the yellow cross so that they're all in the right spot, pretty much orientating all of them. And then there are 2 cases you can get. There's one where you only have one of them, or it's 2 of them, sorry. There's one where you can have 2 of the edges solved, like how I have, or you have all 4. If you have all 4, then great, you're done. If not, you want to have the solved edges to the back and the right of the cube, or if your edges are across from each other, just do it from anywhere. And in this case, I actually got a PLL skip, which you usually won't get, so let me show the other cases real quick. So after doing the algorithm, you should have all of them solved, all the edges, and you can double check by lining it up, and yep, here we have all of them solved. And now we are moving into step 5, orientating the last layer. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at all the corners, and we're going to see if they're all in the right spot. Now you'll either have all of them in the right spot, like how I do, they're just not orientated correctly. You'll have either one of them, or you'll have none of them. If you have 4, great, you're done with this step, but that most likely won't be the case. So here in this case, we can see we have 1, and if you don't have any, then you can just do the algorithm from anywhere. If you do have 1, though, you're going to make it face the front right of the cube. and then you're just going to do this algorithm. And actually, most of the time this won't solve your case and you'll need to repeat the algorithm again. So as you can see in this case, mine are still not solved. I still only have one, so I'm just going to repeat the algorithm one more time. And now they're all solved. Even though these two don't look like they're in the right position, they're just not orientated correctly. Okay, so that actually brings us to the very last step of the Rubik's Cube. Congratulations. So you're going to flip the cube around, and what we're going to do is we're going to solve each corner one by one, and we're going to bring it so that it's in the right column. We're going to rotate the bottom until the corner that we're solving is in the right column, and we're going to do these set of moves. We're just going to keep repeating it until the corner is orientated correctly. Then don't move the cube or freak out on anything. Just move the next corner that needs to be solved into that same spot. Doesn't matter how, you just need to have it be there. And then you just keep repeating the same moves. And as you can see, that set didn't solve it, so we're going to have to repeat it again. Boom. And then you should only be one or two moves away, and you can just orientate the bottom layer or whatever it is, and then the cube is solved. Congratulations. Thank you guys so much for watching my tutorial. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me in the comments. A method I also recommend is just repeating the same step over and over until you master it, and then moving on to the next one, and etc. And that's it. Bye.